this. You wake up, check your crypto portfolio, and boom, half of its value has just vanished into thin air. That is exactly what happened in June of 2026, when Zcash, an absolute pioneer in the privacy coin sector, suffered a brutal sheer cliff price crash, plummeting from $624 all the way down to just $309.
So, today in this explainer, we are unpacking the wild true story of Zcash's incredible rise, its shocking fall, and its potential rebirth this year. Because beneath that terrifying 50% drop lies one of the most structurally fascinating assets in the entire crypto ecosystem. A project caught in this crazy tug-of-war between cutting-edge cryptography, intense corporate drama, and massive institutional accumulation.
Here is our roadmap for today. First, we'll look at the privacy coin paradox. Then we'll unpack that massive 2026 surge. After that, we'll explore the view key solution, dive into the bugs and governance shocks, and finally, wrap up with the future opportunities and risks.
All right, part 1, the privacy coin paradox, need versus regulation.
To understand this whole story, we've got to start with the basic tension here. People really want financial privacy, but global financial surveillance is everywhere. Enter ZK snarks. It's basically a way of mathematically proving you have the absolute right to move funds inside a heavily shielded bank vault without actually opening the vault door for the public to see. Zcash pioneered the zero-knowledge proof tech back in 2016. And today, it's not just some fringe privacy tool. It's literally the foundational cryptographic backbone powering multi-billion-dollar Ethereum Layer 2 networks like ZK Sync and Polygon.
Now, to fund all that world-class research, Zcash did something totally unique right out of the gate. Unlike Bitcoin, they hard-coded a split directly into their block reward. While miners get 80%, the remaining 20% historically went to the founders, the Electric Coin Company, and community grants. This self-funding mechanism is exactly why Zcash has produced hundreds of pages of peer-reviewed cryptography that the rest of the industry totally relies on today. But, as we'll see in a minute, that same structure planted the seeds for some serious internal drama.
Moving on to part 2, unpacking the 2026 surge, institutional accumulation. Let's rewind just a bit to the spring of 2026. All that fundamental research really seemed to pay off, and Zcash absolutely skyrocketed to over $400 a coin, hitting a massive $6.9 billion market cap with hundreds of millions trading daily. And this wasn't just a fluke pump. It was driven by two huge catalysts. First, in January 2026, the SEC officially closed a nearly 2-year investigation into the Zcash Foundation without a single enforcement action. Talk about clearing a regulatory dark cloud. Second, the market was finally feeling the delayed supply squeeze from the November 2024 halving. The daily new supply was chopped down to just 1,800 Zcash. To put that into perspective, at $400 a coin, miners were only creating about $743,000 in daily selling pressure. Compared to the roughly $771 million in 24-hour trading volume we were seeing at the time, that is a total drop in the bucket.
That brings us to part 3, the view key solution, bridging privacy and compliance.
So you might be wondering, how on earth did Zcash survive that global wave of exchange delistings that totally wiped out other privacy coins back in 2023 when regulators were cracking down on anti-money laundering? Well, it comes down to how they differentiate themselves from a competitor like Monero. Monero enforces mandatory opacity. Every transaction is private, period, no exceptions. Regulators hate that. Zcash, however, went with a really clever hybrid model featuring selective disclosure.
The secret sauce here is this brilliant feature called the view key. It lets users keep their transactions completely shielded from the general public. But, and this is the kicker, they can selectively hand a read-only key to tax authorities, auditors, or compliance officers when it's legally required. This selective disclosure completely changed the game. It's exactly why Tier 1 custodians like Coinbase Custody and BitGo gave the green light to officially support shielded Zcash back in 2025. It literally transformed Zcash from a heavily scrutinized speculative retail coin right into a legitimate, institutional-grade asset.
All right, on to part 4, bugs and governance shocks, the summer crashes.
Okay, so it hasn't all been a smooth ride to the top. In January 2026, those incredible highs hit a massive wall when the entire core product team at the Electric Coin Company just resigned en masse. And they left under the incredibly ominous phrase,
constructive discharge. Basically, it exposed a massive internal governance clash. You had the engineering team wanting to push the pedal to the metal with product development and wallet expansion, while the oversight team was slamming on the brakes, hyper-focused on minimizing legal risks and maintaining the purity of the protocol. Under all that pressure, the governance structure just completely broke down.
And as if internal corporate drama wasn't enough, early June threw a massive technical curveball that triggered that 50% crash we talked about at the very beginning. On May 29th, an AI tool actually helped a security researcher discover a critical soundness flaw in Zcash's Orchard shielded pool. And get this, the bug had been sitting there silently since 2022. Theoretically, it could have allowed an attacker to mint unlimited counterfeit Zcash. No way, right? But the dev team was absolutely incredible here. They patched it within days, rolling out emergency soft and hard forks with zero network downtime and zero stolen funds.
The fix went live by June 3rd, and the market actually celebrated. The price peaked at $624 the very next day. But then, the psychological reality of the bug set in. Because Zcash's privacy is so incredibly strong, it's actually virtually impossible to definitively prove if any counterfeit coins were minted before the patch was applied. The market started to panic, and that crash was aggressively accelerated by neutral market realities, including prominent figures like BitMEX co-founder Arthur Hayes allegedly dumping his positions right after making public bullish statements, essentially using retail followers as exit liquidity. Trust was severely shaken, and the price cratered straight down to $309.
Let's look at Part 5, Future Opportunities and Risks, the Horizon.
So after all that chaos, is this the end of the road? Absolutely not. Despite the dramatic crashes, heavy-hitting institutional players like Foundry Digital and Cypherpunk Technologies have just kept steadily accumulating. So let's look at the legitimate fundamental opportunities on the horizon right now. First up, Grayscale has filed to convert its Zcash Trust into a spot ETF. That would be the first ever for a privacy coin, potentially unlocking up to $2 billion in fresh institutional capital. Later in 2026, we have the NU7 network upgrade, which is set to cut block times from 75 down to just 25 seconds. That is a 300% speed boost. NU7 also introduces Zcash shielded assets, letting anyone issue private custom tokens right on the network. Plus, there is a massive long-term plan to shift from proof of work to proof of stake, which completely eliminates those heavy energy consumption concerns for ESG-focused investors.
And they aren't just looking at immediate upgrades. They are thinking decades ahead. As of June 2026, Zcash actually began rolling out quantum recoverable wallets. They are proactively building defenses against the highly anticipated quantum computers that could potentially shatter current encryption models by 2030. They are quite literally trying to future-proof financial privacy for the long haul.
Which brings us to the ultimate multi-billion-dollar question. Can Zcash successfully evolve from a pure idealist privacy coin into the highly scalable, compliant, privacy-preserving infrastructure for the entire next generation of digital finance? They aren't just trying to be anonymous internet money anymore. With unprecedented institutional interest, a spot ETF on the line, and massive technical leaps forward, we are all left watching closely. So what do you think? Was that brutal summer crash the end of an era, or is the true story of Zcash's rebirth really just began?